Hi, I'm glad you're back with me for the reading of MILELE, chapter 10. We will also read chapter 11 as that is a short chapter. In chapter 8, we met a significant character, Dragon, in Jennies. And we also learned something important about Prince Adani, that he actually advocates for humanity. In chapter 9, Michael Shanxi became Agent Mike and is now part of the group of pilots on the island. And we also learned about the criminal activity that has arisen because of the desire for people to have eaten to blood, which they think if they have it transfused or something that they would be able to live on the island as opposed to living under the mist in the rest of the world, except for Israel. Also, a very important revelation that Hope is actually Prince Adani's betrothed. And that was the buried memory that Hope had that is now surfaced with the help of Agios. So let's keep going to chapter 10. And we are in Israel. The Council of Nations had been in evening session for almost an hour before the bombshell hit. Nathan was shocked. He also sensed the shock reverberating from the VIPs around him in a meeting between the 10 leaders of nations and Keiko Bays. Mendax Nabian was seated on Keiko's left, outrage rapidly enveloping his face. Tasabe remained still near the entrance of the room, but Nathan sensed rage emanating from the man. 3 of the national leaders had rejected Keiko Bays as world chancellor. No one had foreseen this. It had been anticipated that, with the debilitated state of the world, Keiko's rule was the answer. It would be a stabilizing force benefiting every country, a new world order. Inevitably, the shocked silence that had followed gave way to murmurs of disbelief, which gradually morphed into a crescendo echoing around the room. Silence! Mendax had spoken with great authority, but it was the rage in his voice that shook Nathan. Mendax was standing, leaning forward, glaring at those beyond the table. The resulting quietness was prompt. He slowly eyed each of the 10 leaders around the table one by one, then declared patronizingly, "There has to be some mistake." But there was no mistake. The small screen facing out from the prominent seat of the world envoy indicated the vote 7-3 in favor of the world rule. Each national leader had voted anonymously via electronic pads conveniently located at each of their seats. A unanimous vote was needed for the world rule. "I'm afraid there is no mistake," the chairman stated firmly. He appeared uncomfortable, yet dutiful in his role. "Perhaps the world is just not ready for this." "Not ready?" Mendax seethed. Keiko held a hand up. Mendax restrained himself from any further outburst, but continued glaring. He slowly resumed his seat, but his chest remained swelled with rage. Keiko then rose slowly, impeccably dressed in a high-end suit and silk tie. He looked searchingly at each one around the table. Then he closed his eyes. He seemed pained, weary. He opened his eyes. "It is what it is." He held out a hand, palm up, and smiled his charming smile. "The world needs more time. We will give her more time." With that, he turned, left his place of prominence, and moved toward the exit and Tasabe. Nathan rose and quickly circled the table to Keiko's abandoned seat. He gathered the folders left there and followed in his employer's wake. We are now back on Eden 2. The sun was high above Agri 1, as Hope handed out lunch rations to the grateful crew gathered around the military utility vehicle. She was trying her best to smile at each one and accommodate any brief chit-chat. Nothing was really any different. No new illnesses, no recent refugees or attempted kidnappings. The usual eat into work and relational conflicts hadn't changed. Disagreements were resolved, and if they couldn't be, they were brought to Agios. It was she who was different. Hope absent-mindedly answered questions the crew threw her way. She caught whiffs of sweaty bodies, saw dusty boots, soiled clothing, and weary, grateful smiles. She was used to it all. But she wasn't used to the feeling that accompanied finally acknowledging her destiny. Try holding that forced smile any longer and you're liable to crack. Hope focused. Boa. She smiled, a real smile this time. I'm not even sure I want to deny it, she said to him. Boa removed his broad-brimmed hat and ran a hand through his damp hair before accepting the lunch package. He moved past her to ease down onto the floor between the open rear gates of the utility vehicle. What's got you so wooden? He asked, opening the aluminum container and removing the contents with efficient familiarity. Wooden? Hope moved closer to him. Yeah, like a robot. He took a long drink of water from an aluminum water bottle before taking a hearty bite of his sandwich. Hope sighed deeply and leaned against the vehicle, looking at him. The chatter of the crew became background noise. I'm not really sure just what to say to you. I guess I'm just having one of those days, when the past and the future suddenly collide and the present seems surreal. Boa's chewing paused, and he studied her for a moment. Excuse me. I don't believe you, he said. You're not telling me everything. What? Hope gave a little laugh. What's to believe? When he didn't respond but continued to eat and look at her doubtfully, she decided to change the subject. By the way, how is the new project going? I've been hearing the rumors, eating them too. After giving her a look which said he knew why she changed subjects, Boa obliged her. He said, actually, the rumors are true. It's been great. We've got a large crew, and, he winked conspiratorially, I've also roped the boys in. Cree and Lucas? That's great. The boys would certainly benefit from a routine task along with their lessons. So, we have agricultural crew, livestock crew, and now fishing crew. Excitement radiated from Boa. Agios was right, he said. I mean, we tried fishing when we first inhabited Eden too, but the results were pitiful. Then Agios suggested fishing by the mist patch, and voila, fish like crazy. Who would have thought? Governor Peter is pumped. That's wonderful, Hope said. She looked toward the crew who were lolling about, resting against the wall of small trees that bordered the agri-field. And now back to you, Boa said. Reluctantly, yet needfully, Hope gave him her attention. Boa, what do you know about Prince Adani and his promise to have the Loyals reign with him in the Sky Kingdom? You mean his pledge? Yes. Boa shifted a little, looked off into space, then focused. Well, to my understanding, all Loyals or promised status in the Sky Kingdom with Prince Adani will have privileges there as ones belonging to him. And what about his bride-to-be? His bride? Boa looked surprised. Well, that is a bit of a mystery. I guess when he's ready to take his bride, then we know the Sky Kingdom is complete. No one knows who she is, but apparently he's already betrothed to her. Of course, she must also be ready first, and when she is, then his father will set everything in motion. Will we all join as one with the bride and inherit the sky kingdom together? Hope asked, even though she already knew the answer. It was as if she needed further confirmation from someone other than Agios. Boa frowned as if searching his thoughts. Well, yes. He paused, lips pursed. He began to speak again, but the vehicle radio suddenly crackled. Excuse me, Hope said, walking around to the driver's side, slightly relieved not to go further with the conversation. Boa had a way of weeding things out. She quickly grabbed the vehicle door handle, opened it, and reached for the phone. Yes, Hope here. Hope, Ruth started, sounding breathless. I thought I'd better prepare you. Keiko Baines is here unannounced and has been asking for you. Me? Yes, and more urgently than he's ever done before. Something must be up, and I don't think we're going to like it. New scene. Ruth was standing outside Hope's bedroom door on the second floor female dormitory at one end of a long hallway, feeling uneasy. Hope suddenly appeared through the stairway door about a quarter way down the hall. She had a small backpack draped across one shoulder and her broad-brimmed hat in one hand. She looked tired, and the ringlets clouded around her slender face in rebellion against her ponytail. She paused in front of Ruth, eyes wary. What does he want? I don't know, but I don't like it. The long, dark hallway with dormitory rooms on either side remained silent for a while. Someone coughed down the hall. Hope sighed, then entered her single room. Ruth followed. You could just say no. I can't just say no. You know that. Hope moved to the bed and dropped the backpack on it. Circling the small room, furnished with a small, beautifully crafted wooden desk, matching chest of drawers, and a simpler shelving and closet unit, she quickly gathered toiletry and clothing. Then she paused, lost in thought. Not wanting to alarm Hope further by explaining the mounting dread she felt, Ruth continued her protest. World envoy or not, you should have a choice whom you wish to spend your evenings with. Hope stooped to look under the bed, pulled out a pair of white sandals, which she left on the floor. Then she straightened and started tossing things into the backpack. You said he claims it's official business. But we know it's not. Ruth leaned one hip against the desk. I mean, what exactly does he want? He makes no moves on you, doesn't flirt with you. He just takes up your time. Hope looked up from the backpack, frowning. I honestly don't know, Ruth. He has an agenda. We know that. I just don't know what. Grabbing the backpack and sandals, she headed for the door. And yes, I'm concerned, but for now, I'll just keep going along with it. You need to speak with Governor Peter. Ruth followed her from the room, closing the door behind her. Hope continued walking. Why? What can he do? She reached the door leading to the shower facility, which was next to her room. Are you kidding me? Hand poised to open the door, Hope glanced back at Ruth. I'm just doing my part to keep the peace, keep our status of cooperation, make sure we have what we need here on Eden 2. Hope, not now, Ruth, later. Hope continued into the shower area, allowing the door to close behind her. Half an hour later, in a simple white cotton sundress and white sandals, Hope approached the VIP guest suite. Earlier, after briefly speaking with Governor Peter, she resolved to meet with Keiko. The governor had seemed troubled for her sake, and then had simply supplied Keiko's location and had left it at that. Hope had gotten the distinct impression that he'd wanted to say more. The door, now before her, was solid, private. It was slightly ajar. The two guards glanced at her briefly, then ignored her. It was their way. She was easily recognized and allowed to move freely on the island. Hope pushed the door fully open and stepped just inside, looking around. Fading sunlight filtered through a large window directly in front of her. On her right, the door accessing the conference room was closed, and the adjacent dining area was empty. To her left, there was a spacious sitting area. A short hallway stemming from the sitting area led to several bedrooms. Strangely, Tsabe was also nowhere to be seen. Relief. But Keiko? Where is he? She thought. Hope looked around, puzzled. Governor Peter had said Keiko would be waiting for her. For a moment, a humorous thought came to mind. Maybe he's retired for the night. Just as the thought settled, one of the bedroom doors opened and Keiko Bays, fully dressed, entered the space. His presence, as usual, was immediately forceful and magnetic, but this time with a subtle difference she couldn't identify. Part of her wanted to go back the way she'd come. Flee, the thought was in her mind, but she didn't flee. She remained glued to the floor. Keiko's gaze was all-consuming at first, then his eyes softened as he moved slowly and steadily in her direction. A few feet from her, he paused and smiled. He held one hand out. Hope, it's so good to see you. His voice was soothing, warm, and something else. Hope found her hand as if by its own accord settling into his. A jolt of ice moved up her arm, then became a bundle of tangled emotions in her core. She gasped. What was it? Tsabe? But he was nowhere to be seen. Come. Still holding her hand, Keiko led her to the sitting area. A pleasant, enticing scent floated from him, filling Hope's nostrils, crowding her will. They sat on a firm sofa, slightly facing each other. Her mouth felt dry. Her hand remained captive, cementing her to him. Get free, was the thought in her head. Was that Agios? But how can I? She thought. I'm sorry to have commanded your presence. His normally piercing blue eyes were soulful, vulnerable, but strangely darker than usual. It's a nasty habit, I know, he shrugged slightly. Comes from having to command the masses, from bearing the weight of the world. He sighed and looked away. Words came to Hope's mouth before her mind could really process them. I'm sure it's difficult. Everyone looking to you for the answers. Her chest tightened. Her hand ached. She felt confused. Keiko looked at her. His will pulled at her. Yes, you understand. You are an icon to so many, Keiko said. A beacon, an enigma to us all. He paused, covering her hand that he still held with his other hand, trapping her. I need you, he continued. I need your help. He shifted slightly, leaning closer, enveloping her with his presence. Hope, Kala Kanisa, the world needs you. The thought again. Flee! I can't, she thought. He needs me. What a dilemma Hope is getting herself into. Well, that takes us to the end of that chapter. And then 11 is very short, so I will read that now. Again, we are in Jennies, outside of time. The sovereign prince turned to his father. My betrothed struggles. I know her uncertainty, her confusion. The sovereign emperor said, The accuser will come, he predicted. He gazed lovingly at his son. But we have made the way for her. She will overcome. But in the meantime, the prince continued, he had the ability to experience all the suffering and the joy of humanity, and his empathy flowed to his father. Look upon her life canvas, the emperor told him, sharing his son's burden. It lay before the prince. He looked upon it and was immediately filled with hope. All right, that's it for chapter 11, and I hope you'll join me next time for chapter 12. Take good care.